Welcome back. In the previous video, we explored the meso level and saw how organizations translate policy into action. But an important question remains: where do policies actually come to life? The answer is the micro level. The micro level is where policy and governance are experienced in everyday practice. It is the level of educators, students, families, staff, and communities. As shown on the left side of the slide, the micro level focuses on individuals, groups, and communities. These are the people who interact with educational policies on a daily basis. The image on the right reminds us that education happens through relationships and interactions. Teachers make instructional decisions, students respond to learning opportunities, families engage with schools, staff members support programs and services, and collectively these everyday actions shape how policies are experienced. What makes the micro level unique is that it is closest to practice. While macro actors create policies and meso actors organize implementation, micro actors are the ones who enact, interpret, and respond to those policies in real situations. This means that educational outcomes are not determined by policy documents alone. They're also shaped by the choices, interactions, and experiences of people working and learning within educational settings. The key takeaway is that the micro level is where policy meets people. It is the space where educational policies become lived experiences and where everyday decisions help shape educational outcomes. So far, we've learned that the micro level is where policy meets people. It is the space where educators, students, families, and communities experience education on a daily basis. At the micro level, policy is not simply followed. It is interpreted and enacted by individuals working within specific contexts. This is what we mean by micropolicy. As shown on the left side of the slide, micropolicy involves a process of moving from policy to interpretation to action. People make sense of policies and decide how they will apply them in their everyday work. Microgovernance focuses on how people work together to make those decisions. It emerges through relationships, conversations, and collaboration among educators, students, families, and other stakeholders. The image in the center reminds us that educational practice is not automatic. Different people may interpret the same policy in different ways depending on their experiences, professional judgment, and local circumstances. As a result, outcomes are shaped not only by the policy itself, but also by how people understand and enact that policy in practice. The key takeaway is that micropolicy and governance focus on everyday decision making. They remind us that policies become meaningful only when people interpret, negotiate, and enact them in real educational settings. In the previous slide, we learned that policies come to life through everyday interpretation and action. This raises an important question: who has the power to shape those interpretations? At the micro level, power and authority are not limited to formal leaders. They are exercised every day by teachers, students, and communities through their decisions, interactions, and participation. Teachers are important policy actors because they make countless professional decisions about instruction, assessment, classroom management, and student support. In many ways, teachers determine how policy is experienced in practice. Students are also policy actors. Through their participation, feedback, choices, and advocacy, students influence learning environments and contribute to shaping educational experiences. Communities play an important role as well. Families, community organizations, and local partners bring knowledge, resources, and perspectives that influence school priorities and decision making. The key idea is that policy is not simply imposed from above. It is continuously shaped by the people who interact with it every day. Through their actions, teachers, students, and communities help determine how policies are understood, enacted, and experienced. The key takeaway is that power at the micro level is distributed. It emerges through participation, relationships, professional judgment, and everyday decision making. So far, we have learned how teachers, students, and communities act as policy actors. This highlights an important insight. Educational outcomes are not shaped by policies alone. They are shaped by what people do with those policies every day. The micro level matters because it is where policy becomes reality. Policies may be written at higher levels of the system, but their impact depends on how they are interpreted and enacted in practice. As shown on the left side of the slide, professional judgment and human relationships play an important role in this process. Educators, students, and communities continuously make decisions that influence how policies are experienced. At the center of the slide is everyday practice. This is where learning occurs, where relationships develop, and where educational decisions are made. It is the space where policy becomes lived experience. The right side of the slide reminds us that these everyday actions shape learning experiences, respond to local contexts, and ultimately influence educational outcomes. What happens in classrooms, schools, and communities matters because it affects what learners actually experience. The key takeaway is that the micro level helps us understand why the same policy can produce different outcomes in different contexts. People, relationships, and everyday decisions play a critical role in shaping what policy ultimately becomes. Throughout this video, we have focused on the micro level and explored how policy is experienced through everyday interactions, decisions, and relationships. The micro lens provides valuable insights into what happens closest to educational practice. However, like any analytical perspective, it also has limitations. When we focus only on the micro level, we risk overlooking the broader forces that shape educational experiences. As shown on the left side of the slide, the micro lens helps us understand people, relationships, everyday practice, and professional judgment. These are important dimensions of educational life that cannot be ignored. But the right side of the slide reminds us that educational experiences are also influenced by factors beyond the immediate context. Policies do not emerge in isolation. They are shaped by larger system structures, policy environments, resource decisions, and organizational processes. The diagram in the center helps illustrate this point. The micro level exists within a larger system. Above it are the meso and macro levels, which influence what resources are available, what priorities are emphasized, and what expectations guide educational practice. This means that some challenges observed at the micro level may actually originate elsewhere in the system. What appears to be an individual or classroom issue may be connected to organizational decisions or broader policy directions. So the key takeaway is that the micro level is essential, but it does not provide a complete understanding of educational systems on its own. To fully understand policy and governance, we must examine how micro, macro, and meso levels interact with one another.